Hey y'all, we're Brandon and Megan Giggling, and we give real talk and real solutions to help you get from where you are to where you want to be.
Whether you are on step one or years into your own personal growth journey, we've got the tools you need to level up.
So if you want to stop making excuses, start taking action, and grow into the person you are meant to be, then pop in your headphones and let's do this.
You ready?
This is the Fools in Love podcast. Well, hello out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Fools in Love podcast. I'm Brandon. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Megan.
We are going to talk about our capacity to just handle life, the ability to just be able to deal with things, to understand that as they come, we have to kind of adjust and grow and adapt.
It's beautiful. And one of the things that kind of brought this up in our minds was we just recently ran our third half marathon. And if you've run or not before, you know, like if you've ever taken on any kind of physical task, that there's a lot of buildup when it comes to it. There's a lot of things that you have to do to prepare, to get your body right, to get your mind right, to get to the place where you can run 13 miles. And so while we were finishing this training off, we actually got the chance to run with each other, which was really cool, on multiple long runs. And typically we would listen to headphones, but we started to actually just talk and have conversations, which is actually really cool because we got a chance to, just as a side, to have a lot of really great conversations and also distract ourselves at the same time. But one of the things I think you brought up to me and I want you to talk about is this ability where even in those times where you're running, like we've had 10-mile runs that seemed easier than a 2 or 3 mile run, because no matter how many times you've done something, there's times where you can go out and you're just not in the right headspace. It's not working that day for whatever reason. And it can be really challenging and really difficult. So then how do you build up the capacity to get to the place where you can take on the bigger challenges in life when those smaller things kind of set you back?
Yeah, so it was funny because I often think this when I run. How can this be that if I'm running 3 miles, this is what I was saying to Brandon that day, if I'm running 3 miles, I'm somehow tired at like 1.5 miles, right? But if I'm running 10 miles, then I'm not tired until 7 miles. Well, there's a big difference between 1.5 miles getting tired and 7 miles getting tired. And I was like, isn't that interesting that it all depends on what the game plan was, how I'm reacting, and when I'm starting to feel the effects of this run. And then as I was kind of thinking that through, I was like, it's not just really running though. I mean, it's way beyond running because, yeah, that's true during our physical fitness, but also it's kind of like life where if things are going pretty well, you don't really need a whole lot of oomph. You can kind of use what you have. You don't really have to go into the reserves, but when things are a little bit tougher, you might tire, so to speak, a little more easily, and you have to dig into those reserves and kind of use some of the things that will propel you forward to get through it. And I don't know, it was just kind of like a whoa moment for me because something as easy as why am I more tired running shorter distance sometimes than longer distances? And that created a conversation about life.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up too, because I never actually had heard you say that before, but I like the analogy of pulling from the reserves. Because I think about if you're taking fitness as a whole, when you're thinking about doing it, there's a certain level or ability that you have that you're trying to then push past and build up to. And there's a functionality of your body, when you're taking back to the analogy of life, there's a functionality of your body to say, this is what your body is capable of doing on a regular basis without much oomph, as you put it, without much challenge, without needing to reach for the reserves. But if you continue to stay at that level and you don't push past what your body's capacity is, then you're not actually burning the fat or breaking down the muscles to build them back up. There's certain things that you're kind of almost setting a ceiling on what you can do if you don't push yourself past those things. And a lot of it, like you were saying, and I think you hit the nail on the head where it's really setting your mind right to say, look, I am setting these parameters for what I have to do, the task in front of me. And like you said, it doesn't have to be fitness. Whatever that task is, I'm setting these parameters. These are the things I can expect. These are some of the challenges that may come in front of me. But these are the things that I know I have to be capable of to accomplish this goal, to get to where I want to be. For running, it's easy because it's a tangible thing. Like when you're like, I can run 13 miles. That's awesome. But how do you build up to running 13 miles? Because it's not advisable or, something I'd recommend to go out and try to do that today if you've never put on running shoes before. So you have to slowly progress. And I think everything in life is a progression like that though, right? Because each thing you're starting from anew, you're starting from scratch, regardless of what it is. Maybe you have some experience with it before, but you're at a certain level that you're comfortable with. So then how do you push past that comfort area and get to a higher capacity or higher functioning as a person? And the only way you can do that is by going out there and pushing your beliefs on what you can and are capable of doing. And that's one of the things that running is a perfect analogy for, because like you said, you can't go out and run. Like a few weeks ago, we went out and trained and ran 10 miles. Well, when we got 2 or 3 miles in, the fact that we would have been tired, even though our body was feeling it, we couldn't let that overwhelm our consciousness, because the likelihood of us completing the full run with that idea in mind is worthless to us. It's giving us nothing. It's giving us no energy. It's like those negative thoughts, when they pop into your mind, you're like, get away. I have to accomplish 10. But if I was running 2 miles and I got a mile in, then I could have a little bit of tiredness and understand that I'm almost done. But see, your point in this, and I love it, is you can set the constructs of where your mind is, and you can kind of move around the brackets of what your thinking is and what you're going to accomplish based on whatever situation that comes in front of you.
Yeah, and the coolest thing about it really is, as you encounter whatever life is throwing at you, you're almost building the ability to do it more and do it better the next time, right? So whether it's running or not, it doesn't really matter, because the end all be all of it is that as you experience these things, you are building the muscle. I'm putting my quotations up, the muscle, to be able to do the next thing. And I love that, because there are so many times when I just feel completely incapable of whatever the task at hand is. A lot of times I'm like, I don't think that this is something that I can handle. I don't think that this is something that I'm ready for. I have not had the experience that I need to do this. But then I'm like, you know what? If I think about this logically, I probably don't need to have this exact experience to be able to handle what is in front of me at this point. If I have any experience in life, then that will have helped prepare me for the moment that I'm about to head into. So if something is a struggle for me, then I can just be like, you know what, maybe I haven't had this happen, but I sure have had hard things happen before. And so how did I handle those struggles? Let me go back. Let me flex the muscle, so to speak, and figure this out. And it's so helpful for me just to build my confidence and to build the ability to actually tackle new things and hard things.
Yeah. And I think for me, like when I think about what you were just saying, it's my thought pattern of trying to keep myself in a safe space that I feel comfortable in. And so in that ability to try to keep myself safe and not push myself further, I'm actually capping my level for growth. I'm capping my potential capacity because I'm limiting what I'm allowing myself to do. And for me, when we talk about running, and I've shared this story before, but it's been a long time, I never even thought I could run. I mean, I had surgery years ago, and I sat around for 9 years, and I said I couldn't run. And I bought the lie that my body didn't have the ability to take it on, to the point where even if I was trying to jog, I couldn't do it. I was limping. If I was trying to do anything with my legs, it was a struggle. And I'd complain to Meg about being sore, and I'd fall into this like victimhood and this victim mentality of where I was at. And I always believed the fact that I couldn't do it. Until one day you started running, and I came to you and like, do you think I can do this? And you were like, yeah, I think you could do whatever the smaller run was. And then I built on that capacity and level and built up my muscles, to your point, and it carried my legs way further than I ever thought. And I mean, while I was doing that, I did need braces. I did need help. I did need things, to the point where I kept doing it. I kept pushing myself. I kept testing my capacity, because sometimes I think you need to test the ability that you have, test the hypothesis that you have for your life, test whatever it is. Because when I just ran this race, I was completely unencumbered. What do I mean by that? I mean, I didn't need braces.
On your knees.
I didn't need braces on my knees. I didn't need things to help me because my body carried me to the place where I didn't otherwise think was possible. But how many times for you, like you said, have hard things come in front of you? You didn't believe you had the capacity to take it on, and maybe you didn't. But your ability to push yourself through that and challenge yourself into it allowed you to build that capacity for the future in every other thing that comes in front of you.
Absolutely. We've talked recently about like how we are in control of like our attitude and being kind and all those things. We're just also in general very responsible and very able to control our minds. It's hard to do, but it's possible. It's not just that running is a mental game. It's that life is a mental game. And we have to find ways that we can actually keep up with the mental game and beat the mental game and be on top of it. Because if you are not able to, that's where the depression hits. That's where the anxiety hits. That's where all the problems come in, because we're just not able to clench it in, to figure it out, and to be able to kind of rise above that struggle. And I feel like if we were just a little bit better at understanding that our mental capacity, that life is just this mental thing that we've just got to figure out, because if we do, it can be a beautiful, amazing thing, and we don't have to struggle quite as much with all the problems that we sometimes have. I know that Brandon and I are both kind of prone to the anxiety and depression thing, but as we are able to really flex the muscle, to really understand our capacity and growth, then it becomes less of an obstacle in our way. Or when it happens, we're better able, we're more equipped to handle those types of feelings and problems.
Yeah, it's almost like you can set the thermostat for your life and how you show up. I think about that because we're sitting in our studio right now and I hear the heat kick on because it's a little bit cooler, and we set that level of what we want the house to be at. But what if you could do that for your own life? What if you could set the thermostat for how you're going to show up regardless of what you come in contact with? What if it was that simple? And what if also it didn't have to be perfect? Like you said, you might not know what to expect, and you might not know what you're walking into, but what if that didn't matter? What if you set that thermostat and it was keeping your life and your mindset at a temperature that didn't matter what you came in contact with, because you would adjust on the fly to get you back to where you need to be? What if that was a possibility? It's pretty cool and pretty frightening to understand that you are in control of all these things. I know for me, it weighs heavy on me. Because in my times of struggle, and in times where I feel like I'm falling short, and in times where I feel like I'm not really living into my full potential, it can be really hard to understand that I'm standing in my own way. But what if I had the ability to just reprogram that thermostat? What if I had the ability to just do those things, show up anyway, do it anyway, and try it and see and build that muscle and build my capacity and shift those brackets in my life to prove to myself that I am capable of so much more. As much as my safety tries to limit me, as much as my knee tried to limit me in my running, when I said, no, I'm not going to believe that lie, I'm going to go out and test this hypothesis for myself, guess what? I came up with different results than I ever believed I could.
Yeah. It's crazy because, I mean, well, first of all, Brandon has like medical cement in his knee. So that's where the whole idea that he couldn't run, I think it was like a thing that kind of freaked him out a little bit. Like the idea that he would even run on that knee kind of gave him the heebie-jeebies a little bit. So that's why he wasn't able to do that for so long. Was just in his mind, of course. But so I'm so proud of you for running that. I'm so proud of you for just everything that you've accomplished, not just running, but all this life, because this mental work is so hard. This ability to kind of do these things and understand what you're capable of is just, it's hard and it's daunting and it feels sometimes really freaking impossible. And yet we've got to try anyway. And for me, I don't actually do affirmations every morning or even with any regularity, but I have noticed myself kind of mentally pumping myself up a little bit. So I guess in a way it's an affirmation, even though it's not like I am strong, I am beautiful, like a certain word in a certain order. But it is like I am talking to myself. I am kind of mentally giving myself a big pep talk every time I feel like I need it. And so that really has kind of helped me be able to do the things that I want to set out to do. Like in my head when I'm running, I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. It's possible. I've done it before. This is not going to be the worst run. I've had worse runs than this. I can keep going. And I do that with like not just running. Now I've started to do it with everything. Yes, I'm having a kind of a day, but guess what? I've had days like this before and I'm still here to talk about it. So let's go.
Yeah, and it almost feels a little silly when you're saying it and when you're doing it, because I do it for myself too. I pump myself up. If I have a call that I don't necessarily want to take, if I have something in front of me that I don't necessarily want to do, I pump myself up. I pull from the vault of past memories of things where I did accomplish hard things, where I'm capable of accomplishing hard things. And it's weird because it just, you feel a little bit silly when you're like, well, just talk to yourself and pump yourself up. But what would you do to a friend, or what would you do for your kids, or what would you do for your partner if they needed a little help, if they needed a little encouragement, if you wanted to motivate them a little bit? Would you not give them words of affirmation? Would you not give them encouragement? Would you not try to lift them up? So why do we feel weird when we're trying to do that for ourselves? It's really not that strange of a thing to do. You know that from the people you interact with in the world, the people that will give you some light, will give you some love, will pump you up a little bit, are the people you want to keep around you and insulate yourself with. But if you're not treating yourself that way, then the closest person you're insulated with that no one else knows is that person in your mind. And you can easily allow them to control the narrative of your life, or you can pump them up, like Meg said, and you can have them be a cheerleader rather than a deterror of what you're trying to do. And once you build that capacity and build that relationship and understand that you control a lot of what that voice is telling you, but even more so, you control whether you want to listen to that voice or not all the time.
I like that. Yeah, I do feel like sometimes we're listening to the wrong voice, or that's a little bit too loud and we're kind of going the wrong direction. So I've really been trying to be more conscious of that.
So one of our challenges for you this week would be, look at your life, look at the challenges you have in front of you, look at the things that you want to do, and ask, are you capping yourself? Are you limiting yourself with what you're doing? And could you shift your mindset? Could you shift your brackets? Could you bite off a bigger goal or try something bigger than you were even expecting and see if that allows you to build the muscle a little bit more? Because really everything is how you pose it, how you look at it, how you show up for it. So what if you showed up in a way of compassion? What if you showed up in a way of being your cheerleader? What if you realized that the times in your life where maybe things didn't go the way you planned, but you had to go out and do it anyway, they allowed you to shift your capacity forward and not put a ceiling on your life, push past that ceiling and realize the true potential that you have. So we invite you to look at your life this week. Let us know what you come up with. As always, you can reach out to us at the Fools in Love Podcast, and we love y'all. Thank y'all so much for listening.
Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.
And if you want to be our BFFs, leave us a review. It helps more people find the show and allows us to share our message with the world.
We love y'all.